Hello everybody, Cosmic Zen here. In this video I'm going to talk about what I think the world is going to be like in 100 years. 2112. Now my good friend Deep Ashtray I think started this, and then he tagged some people. He tagged Got That Funk, or at least Got That Funk responded to it, and Got That Funk asked me to respond to it. And Deep Ashtray and Got That Funk are like infinitely cool, so I'm like, okay, so here it is. Now in order to look at 100 years in the future, I think that it's logically acceptable to look 100 years in the past. At 1912, what was it like? People started using cars. Their fashion was a little different. It seemed like there was more black and whites and bow ties and derby hats, and the Great Depression was after that. And we can see kind of in the black and white movies what it was like. They were coming out of the cowboy era. Their trains were starting to go across America. The industrial age was starting to pick up. Now, in the later part of the 20th century, obviously, technology is gigantically advancing. And now in the 21st century, it's out of control going faster. So if we look at 100 years ago at 1912 to now, you'd think would be a logical expectation. But let's look at 1912 compared to 1812. There were still some advances there, but really the big differences were more paved roads because of the coming of the automobile, trains, obviously. The Industrial Revolution happened about in the 1850s. Now if we look at 1812 versus 1712, not a whole lot of difference. Mainly fashion. Technology advanced some, but if you keep going back 100 years at a time, really the only big changes are in fashion and music. Art, culture advances a little bit at a time every 100 years. Ideologies will change somewhat. You'll get some new ideas every now and then. But from 1912 to 2012, big difference. And one of the big differences is because of the technology. Now, obviously, fashion is a big difference. 100 years from now, who knows what people will be wearing? It's hard to speculate. I don't think that people will be walking around in white buildings wearing silver outfits like we kind of normally project in the future because it seems futuristic somehow. I think people will still be, wearing different kinds of clothes, and fashion will evolve to what it is. It'll be different than now. But what happens now is still going to have a big influence on what happens then, because more so than times in the past, the people now are still seeing movie images and television images that were from the past. So fashion kind of is going in a cycle. Things come in, things go out. So how we dress 100 years from now, will be somewhat different than today, but still, people are going to be wearing clothes. Okay, it's not like we're going to be wearing, one-piece jumpsuits and everybody's going to be wearing the same, or any kind of 1984 prisoner-looking thing. I mean, people have individuality. I don't think individuality will be stamped out in 100 years. I think some of the world problems are going to get worse. I think pollution of the soil and the water and the air is going to get worse and worse and worse. As long as the capital system is in play and there's no profit in cleaning up, it's going to be hard to get people to clean up. Either someone's going to have to come along with some ideas on how to clean up their soil, the water, and the air, and it be profitable, or the capitalist system is going to have to be thrown out for a better way. Or both. Hopefully. Both. Hopefully. Another big difference is the population growth. Now, the human population has been steadily growing ever since. But in the last 50 years, it's been growing by billions and billions. And 100 years from now, there could be 20 billion people or 50 billion people. It's hard to say. It's also kind of relevant to food production, which they say there are going to be food shortages, but I think that has more to do with the distribution of food and the wealth involved more so than not being enough food, because America throws enough food away a year that they could feed the poor countries easily, 10 times over. So the population growth will keep going and going and going for another 100 years and probably way out of control. The poverty is going to keep growing and growing and growing and going way out of control. I mean, are the poor people ever going to rise up and fight the rich people? I kind of doubt it, because the rich people have the resources. You know, in Got That Funk's video, he was talking about the Cold War, and I was brought up around the Cold War too. I know that America has a lot of nukes out there, and there's a lot of Russian nukes that are unaccounted for that are still floating around out there. And new countries are having nuclear power all the time and nuclear bombs. So that's always going to be a threat. I don't see how anybody is not influenced by the Cold War. I mean, maybe the younger generation aren't worried about nukes, but freaking everybody should be because they're the biggest threat on the planet. But, you know, there could be a big giant Third World War. There could be another bubonic plague that wipes out 2/3 of the population. There could be an asteroid slam into the Earth. People could start colonizing the moon or one of the planets of Jupiter. Hopefully the space program will grow over the next 100 years. I'm sure it will. I'm sure within 100 years, surely we'll have colonies on Mars or the moon or one of Jupiter's moons or Saturn's moons. Certainly there'll have to be, I would think, more than one human colonization within 100 years from now. Hopefully, because we need to get off the planet if we want to survive. To survive Earth's destruction, no matter how it comes, humans have to be off the planet. And you know, if there is a colony of humans on Mars, they wouldn't be Earthlings no more. Those babies would be Martians. They might still be Homo sapiens, but they would be Martian by birth. And once humans start traveling in space, being in space long term takes a lot of physical demand. Being in weightlessness, you need to take it upon yourself to have the willpower to exercise each day, or your muscles will deteriorate and your bones will become fragile. Now, most humans are pretty lazy. The first humans that go into space will probably maintain this for a while. You'll have to maintain your physique to maintain your body, or it's going to start deteriorating. But as new generations are born in space, whether they're born in space or born on the moon or born on Mars, that's going to speed up evolution. The offspring of those people, of those colonies, will have to start evolving in different ways. And as the different ways start to evolve, whether it's different aspects of muscles and bone or whatever else that makes them different from what is a standard Homo sapien now, they will evolve into different species of Homo sapiens. Maybe you have Homo Martian or Homo Moon. I don't know how they'll classify them. Most of human evolution is based on brain size and skeletal structure. I'm not sure if colonizing the different areas of space would have much to do with our brain size. It might, but it will definitely have some demands on the body that the offsprings will either have to adapt or die. Technology. Obviously, technology is going to advance from now to 2112. I mean, there's people working on teleportation right now, teleportation of electrons. Who knows? I don't know if it'll ever be like in Star Trek where we disassemble our body and turn into energy and appear somewhere else. I don't know if it'll get that far. I don't know if we'll have flying cars. I think there'll always be some kind of land travel, although 100 years from now there's probably not going to be any gas anymore. They're going to have to come up with some kind of other energy, whether it's nuclear power or solar power or whatever else. When those cars start running out, if they don't have another energy source in place, it might go back to horses and stuff for a while. But I think that the rich people like being rich, and they're going to come up with some kind of consumable fuel source that the people will still have to keep paying for. Even if it's electric cars, you still got to pay for the electricity. So I do think the internal combustion automobile will probably be gone in 100 years. There's probably going to be, billion-something cars just sitting around unless they recycle them into whatever else. Whatever the new fuel source is going to be will probably require lighter vehicles, so there's going to be a lot of extra steel and stuff laying around from these cars that I'm sure they'll use for something, but I don't think they'll be cars like we know it today. They'll probably be lighter, sleeker, faster, or whatever else, depending on the fuel source. Or there might be horse-drawn carriages if they don't come up with a better fuel source. I'm sure they'll probably go with electricity. I don't know, it's the future, but people like having their own mode of transportation, so I'm sure something like that will be going on, but I'm pretty sure it won't be petroleum driven. There's no doubt war will advance. Seems like the biggest advancements that are made in technology are because of war, people trying to build the better bomb or the better gun. There are people working on stun guns and things like that now, which maybe it'll evolve into less killing of people, maybe there'll be more oppressing of people. There's sound weapons and optical weapons and things like that going on. And I'm not saying that's better. At least people aren't dying, but if you're going to live in an oppressive whatever, is that really better than dying? I don't know. War and the war machine will advance. I'm sure at some point there's going to be a conflict between China and America or China and Russia. Something's going to go on there. You know, the Chinese, because of their family policies, are only allowed to have one kid, and most of them choose to have a male. So this has been going on for decades. At some point, all those Chinese males are going to want to get laid. And, you know, the Russians and the other Asian countries around them are closer than we are. It would be hard for them to come across the ocean before we nuked them, so it seems hard to fathom that China could invade America. Certainly it would be easier to go to Russia and then on through Europe or whatever, but I think things will keep building up there. I mean, if there is a World War III, I think America and China will both be involved. And I'm not trying to cause hate with the Chinese, okay? I think fusion and multiculturalism is the way to go. Hopefully we can help them and they can help us and we have a more greener society. I'm for prosperity for everyone. You know, it would be great to think that people will be more educated and become more intellectual, and maybe the world will be some beautiful utopia 100 years from now, and maybe in a lot of ways it will. I mean, 100 years ago in America, you know, the blacks, they weren't slaves anymore, but they were still oppressed and segregated. Women didn't have rights. They couldn't vote. So we've made a lot of progress in those areas. One of the big subjects today is gay marriages. So, you know, the gays are an obvious minority, and they're starting to get some legal representation or whatever. I'm sure other minorities that we may even be unaware of now, you know, they'll have some rights in the future. Maybe religious tolerance will be a thing. Maybe we'll even luck out and get rid of religion as a whole. I mean, it's nice to think that in 100 years, maybe the whole world will be, you know, holding hands, singing Imagine or whatever. I do hope that people become more open to socialist ideas. I mean, I'm an anarchist, but I see the benefit of society coming together and using what government they have for the benefit of the people. You know, like with the fire departments and the police departments and the post office. Those are socialist systems. You know, we pay our taxes and the government provides us service. I hope the same thing happens with the health care. I think it would be great if everybody in America or everybody in the whole world would have free health care. I mean, that is a government benefiting society. That's a government helping its citizens. I mean, that's a lot more useful than a fire department. I mean, fires are nice that they put out the fires, but every single person is going to need to go to a doctor. Every single person is going to get old. Every single person is going to need to go to the hospital. So it would be nice if they provided that. It would also be nice if they socialized electricity, so there would be free power for everybody. There's no reason, if you're paying your electric bill every month, there's no reason why that couldn't be just scooped up by the government, thrown into the whole tax mix, and get free electricity. There's just no reason for that. Some countries in South America even have socialized phone. They get free phones. And I'm not saying we should have free phones. I mean, maybe. It'd be nice if everyone had access to 911. Seems like that would benefit society. And I think that a lot of these things, even though they may seem radical now or undesirable now, 100 years from now, I think people will, you know, be a little smarter and wake up to some of these ideas and realize that if we're going to have this government, it's either oppressing us or it's working for us. And if it's working for us, then it needs to work for us. You know, JFK said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And that's all fine and dandy. But you know what? The country should be doing for you as well. If you're going to legitimize your government, then it should be working for you. Otherwise, what's the point of having a government? If it's not working for your society and not helping out each individual, then why even have it at all? Get rid of it. If you're going to do it yourself, do it yourself. You don't need them. So even though I'm an anarchist, I see a lot of social benefits. So, I don't know, maybe I don't want to be pigeonholed as an anarcho-socialist because I like to just be an anarchist flat out. But even in an anarchist society, there would be social benefits for people working together. Obviously, people working together can accomplish more than each person working individually. So, You just have to be intellectual and weigh the cost benefit of each one of these things. And if it's going to help the people, it's going to help the people. And I hope that 100 years from now, whatever social organizations exist are actually helping people and not just selling a bunch of crap to a lot of people. That's one of the big problems today is the consumerism, and buying a bunch of crap that you don't need because you think you have to is one of the biggest problems of the planet. It causes a lot of pollution. It's causing a lot of waste of resources and finances that could be going to other places and helping other people. And these other people, if they're helped, if their society is better, it's going to make your society better. And I hope that we're a lot more global 100 years from now. I'm sure we will be with the way technology and the media is advancing. We'll have a more global society. I mean, I don't think it's going to be like a one world government. I don't contribute to the whole ideology of an NWO. I think that's just all conspiracy theory. Obviously, there's a bunch of rich people who are greedy and have their own agendas and want to accomplish a bunch of stuff, but I don't know if there's this one group of old white rich men that are pulling all the strings. I think there's a whole lot of rich people doing everything they can to make more money. It's nice to think that 100 years from now, maybe capitalism won't exist at all and people will recognize it for the slavery that it is. But, if you look at capitalism, socialism, communism, they all look good on paper. You got to equate the human factor. And, it's one of the reasons why people say capitalism works is because it plays on people's greed. But hopefully there'll be a better way. And in 2112, I'd like to say that there's going to be this silver-lined future. I mean, things are going to be better and things are going to be worse. Like I said, if people don't learn how to profit from cleaning up the pollution, the Earth's going to be a crap hole in 100 years. Half the oceans will be dead zones. There probably won't be blue skies. There'll probably be brown and gray skies like you see over the big cities like LA, New York with the haze. I mean, over the Rockies or something like that, there might still be some clean skies, but populated areas become more polluted. The construction industry is out of control, building neighborhoods after strip malls and roads. They need to get away from building all this new crap and start building inwards and fixing up the crap that's run down and making it new and shiny instead of killing off all the wilderness. 100 years from now, I'd say 50% of all the different species on Earth or more will be extinct. We seem to kill everything except what our foodstuffs are, what we eat and what we eats, and everything else. And there's a lot of medicines and stuff that come from plants and animals that we don't even know about yet. And they're just killing off these things, They're killing off the cure to AIDS. They're killing off the cure to cancer. They're killing off the antidotes to problems we don't even have yet. The viruses keep evolving, but they keep killing off any chance they have of fixing those things every time they make something extinct. So I think there's going to be a lot of extinction in 100 years, that's for sure. Whether people will be extinct or not, I think kind of depends on the war or some kind of microbug. Hopefully we'll have colonies in space, but, there'll still be a sky. As long as we don't destroy the planet, there'll still be an atmosphere. The grass will still be green. It's not going to look a whole lot different. There'll be modernizations of architecture and the music, and the movies might be holograms by then, 100 years. I'd say that it wouldn't be rare that there'll be some kind of electronic interface with the brain where you have what's similar to a USB port, but probably a lot smaller, where you can plug your brain right into the internet and, watch 3D movies, right in your brain. Or, floating out in the middle of the room. I guess it would look like that if it was in your brain. It could look like whatever they wanted it to be. But I'm sure there'll be massive technological advances with the electronic computer human interface. I think that'll be one of the major things. And if they work out the teleportation thing, maybe we can start teleporting through the internet. I definitely think that in 100 years, it's going to be a lot different than it was from 100 years ago. I mean, I think that's quite obvious. The things will be the same. I mean, people will still be eating and sleeping and crapping. People are quite inventive. Somebody might come along and have a new art idea or music idea that takes it away from what we know of as art or music today. Without knowing, it's hard to project that idea, but if you look at like classical music, it was like the peak of musical performance. And things just kind of went downhill or leveled off. They had some different ideas after that until rock and roll. And then once rock and roll happened, it kind of changed the face of music. surely something will come along and change the face of music. I don't know if it's going to happen within 100 years or not. But the same with the art and the architecture always evolve. And the philosophies, there's going to be some new ideologies. The ideologies continue to evolve as well. And I think a lot of ideas spread through the social consciousness a lot faster these days. But I think it's a lot harder for people to implement change than it was in the past. In the past, you could talk to a group of people. They had community rooms they could talk to, and they would go out in their communities and do what they wanted to do to make that change. And this is how these grassroots ideas took off and were successful. But today, and I'm sure more so in the future, people are kind of prisoners of their living rooms or whatever room it is they hang out in, where they got their television or their internet or their handheld device, and everybody's face is in a electronic device these days. And really, it's, even though it seems kind of freeing as an individual to be able to travel the world of ideas and culture in the palm of your hand, it's also kind of imprisoning in the idea that it's individualizing each person instead of these big community groups that they would have in the past, where people would go and get things done and implement real change. So ideologies along the ideas of individualism making changes on a social level certainly will be evolving. I hope that didn't sound too redundant. That was kind of hard to say. Anyway, see y'all. Let me know what you think. What's it going to be like in 100 years? Make me a video. See ya. Peace.